So, the New York Japan Society's annual film festival, Japan Cuts, is online this year. It's one of my favorite fests, and if you're in the US, you can digitally attend it. So, over the next week, I'm going to do a few short reviews of films I've found interesting there. First up, I briefly mentioned in my Best of the Decade list that I had seriously considered putting Shin'ichirô Ueda's feature debut, One Cut of the Dead, in the slot I ultimately gave to Shion Sono's bad film. One Cut of the Dead was really one of those amazing surprise success stories. Ueda had made 8 short films before that and sent them off to various festivals, hoping that he could get started as a commercial director. He made the sorts of stories that he thought would be popular, and exactly none of them gained any traction. So he threw popular consideration out the window and collaborated with a group of unknown actors on a fun and genuinely clever take on the zombie genre. And voila. It's literally everything that capital T they tell you when you say you want to make art. 1, just do it. And 2, make sure it is the thing that you want and not what you believe other people might want. Because honestly, you don't know what other people want, and it's probably the case that you couldn't give it to them anyway. But One Cut of the Dead also could have been a fluke, given that it is seemingly tailor-made for the kinds of people who would shout its name from the rooftops. Everyone I know who is deeply interested in films and filmmaking absolutely loves this movie. Like me. But the rest aren't quite as enamored. But fortunately for Ueda and co., the critics who have the platform and inclination to champion this sort of work fit neatly into its niche, and they rewarded him with universally positive reviews and a kind of success that he never really expected. But he says it was paralyzing, though he was able to turn to his friends and family for support, and then turn that paralysis into the narrative seed that would become his second feature. Special Actors is a film about a man who is unable to perform. Kazuto is an anxious mess who literally faints at the first sign of conflict. Being yelled at by a male authority figure results in apparent PTSD flashbacks of the emotional abuse he received from, I assume, his father, and then he just collapses. But the film isn't about his trauma, it's about him overcoming it, sort of. The premise of Special Actors is suitably wacky. Kazuto is moping on the street of Tokyo because he fainted during an audition and sees a fight break out as some random person starts harassing a couple. The man pushes back and knocks the drunkard down and they flee. And then the man comes back and says thank you. Turns out the drunk is actually Kazuto's brother and an actor. But not just any actor. He is a member of the Special Actors team, hired to go out into the world and secretly perform. A restaurant manager might hire an angry couple to test his waitstaff. A studio might hire some audience members to laugh at all of the jokes during a film screening. A young woman whose sister has been indoctrinated by a religious cult might hire a whole team to infiltrate their ranks and expose their lies. And if you couldn't tell from the specificity of that last one, that's the movie. Ueda hasn't yet gone into one of these features with a story in mind. His first step, interestingly enough, is casting. He put together an ensemble of 15 actors based primarily on how much he liked looking at them and who he thought would be the most fun to have dinner with, choosing to work primarily with unknowns because they just aren't that busy and can devote all of their time to him and his project. The story comes together in workshops, and each character is shaped to fit the actor who plays them. Indeed, characters share their actors' names with just one letter change to note that they're not exactly the same. This is fascinating. It's a really interesting way to approach filmmaking and definitely not one that most people could pull off. It reminds me a bit of the way indie director Christina Callis works. She's a New York-based filmmaker I met at the Women Texas Film Festival back in 2016 when her debut feature 42 Seconds of Happiness played there. For her films, she is basically an acting collective with which she does months of improvisational workshops where the actors play out scenes that define their characters. And then they use all of that work as the basis for these incredibly dense films that have this amazing lived-in quality, where the characters will offhandedly reference all sorts of experiences they've had together that we never see, but do feel as though they've really happened because they kind of did. It was just in a workshop instead of on set. Ueda's style is less method, but still very intense as he and his cast talk, eat, watch movies, and just exist together as they form this story. And Special Actors' story is pretty dark, as it turns out. Aside from the protagonist's PTSD, this is a movie about a cult/MLM scheme that does exactly what those types of organizations do. Take advantage of people who are going through difficult times and then sign them up for expensive services to save their lives. The scene where everyone is being forced or forcefully recommended to sign up for their sessions is played for laughs, but it's also kind of not funny because it's true. And the way that they take particular advantage of the grieving sister of the woman who hired the Special Actors team in an effort to take her deceased parents in and then use it as a headquarters is exactly the sort of insidious shit that's actually happening. It's heartbreaking, and hearing the members laughing about how they almost sold a piece of garbage to someone for thousands of dollars is infuriating and real. According to Ueda, he was once pulled into an MLM scheme and in his 20s found himself almost tricked into a spiritual group of this sort as well. And so he drew on those experiences alongside all of the research he did about these types of organizations, as well as accounts from people who have left them. But of course, this is a comedy, so there is an obvious layer of artifice. The cult leaders are cartoonishly incompetent. For example, the guy who they've put into the role of their all-powerful messiah just gets a perm, and so everyone has to go along with this powerful messiah having a perm, but obviously the leader who receives his communications is furious that he put such an idiot in that position, and that whole thing is funny. And it all plays out in some really interesting and unexpected ways that feel very of a piece with what Ueda did with One Cut. His stories feel familiar but cleverly subversive. I didn't enjoy Special Actors as much as I did One Cut. While I found the first 30 minutes of One Cut of the Dead sort of annoying, the rest of the film won me back 120%. Special Actors didn't really do the same, in the sense that I mostly just found Kazuto frustrating. His anxiety forces him to be extremely passive, basically the whole movie. And while that's obviously set up for the moment that he takes his power back, and the scene where he does is fucking great, it didn't make me retroactively appreciate how long he refused the call. Still, it's clear to me that One Cut of the Dead was not a fluke. Shin'ichirô Ueda has proven himself to be a vital filmmaker whose collaborative style results in unique stories that are all the more effective for their relative lack of polish. I am very curious to see what's next, as I know that he's looking to branch out and try his hand on some projects that don't have that same ground-up approach that he had for his first two features. But whatever it is, I'm along for the ride. 7.9 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you particularly to my patrons, my mom, Hamry and Marco, Kat Saracata, Benjamin Schiff, Anthony Cole, @BlasianFMA, Magnolia Denton, Elliot Fowler, and Greg Lucina. If you like this video, that's great. If not, I'm sorry. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Hope to see you in the next one.